Good afternoon and welcome to Lunch Break with the Rabbi. Today is Wednesday, May 26th, 2021. It is the 15th day of Sivan. As I do, I remind you again, you're more than welcome to submit your comments, questions, or suggestions of what you would like these lunch breaks to be about. If you have an interesting topic or a discussion that you would like to have, feel free to send me an email, post it, and we can try to discuss that as well. As we continue our conversation in this week's Torah reading, in the third Torah reading of the book of Numbers, we've discussed many times that the book of Numbers is split up into two parts. The first part of the book of Numbers is the first 2 years of the Jewish people's travels through the desert, while the last 5 or 6 portions are the last 38 years of the Jewish people's traveling through the desert. The book of Numbers discusses many episodes and events that happened to the Jewish people while they were traveling through the desert. In fact, the Hebrew word for the book of Numbers is Bamidbar, which means in the desert, of the episodes that happened while the Jewish people were traveling through the desert. An interesting fact of while the Jewish people were traveling through the desert and after they left the land of Egypt, once they were in the land of Egypt, right before they left, God gave them a commandment to have the Paschal offering together with the matzah, ready to leave Egypt at any moment. Once they left the land of Egypt, they then were given the obligation to celebrate Passover every single year with the Paschal offering, the matzah, as they did on the day when they left Egypt. But if one was to look into the Torah and see the system of events, how they unfolded, you will notice that the Jewish people only brought the Paschal offering once after they left Egypt in the desert. For 38 years, while the Jewish people were in the desert, they did not bring the Paschal offering. Only once they came to the land of Israel did they once again return to the concept and ideas of bringing the Paschal offering again, which is very wondersome. In fact, the commentator Rashi notes that this is actually an embarrassment for the Jewish people, that they didn't bring the Paschal offering all these years. And the question is why? Moses was with them. Can it be that Moses wouldn't also bring the Paschal offering? And the reason is because if we look at the first time the Jewish people were given the Paschal offering, the mitzvah of Pesach, it was contingent on the fact that they should be in the land of Israel. And being that they were not in the land of Israel up until they met Joshua and crossed the Jordan River and came into the land of Israel, therefore they did not bring the Paschal offering until then. However, if we look a little deeper into this week's Torah reading, we see there were another group of people who technically also were not allowed to bring the Paschal offering, or were not obligated to bring the Paschal offering. And those were people who were impure, or lived in quite some distance. In this case, they were impure because, according to the commentary, they were the ones who took the 2 sons of Aaron who died out of the Holy of Holies, and therefore an impure person is not allowed to touch or bring a sacrifice. They missed out on the experience of bringing the sacrifices. So they asked, and they said, Lama nigara, it's not fair. Why do we get to lose out from bringing a sacrifice? It is not in our own volition that we became impure. We were there doing a service for the Jewish people, burying the dead. Why then do we not have an opportunity to bring a sacrifice? With that, God comes to Moses and a new concept comes along. The concept of Pesach Sheni, a second Passover. Meaning that God now says, should there be people, even in future times, that have not made it to the Holy Temple for whatever reason it may be, not, of course, on purpose, but inadvertently, were not able to be at the Holy Temple for the time of Passover, whether they got stuck on the road, or whatever may happen, or they were impure, again, because they had to bury somebody in their family, whatever it may be, they have a month later an opportunity to bring the Paschal offering. Today, we symbolize that second Passover by eating matzah or things of that nature a month after Passover. And besides the fact that that teaches us a great lesson in its own, that there's a second chance, but over here there's a deeper thing that it's telling us. Those Jewish people were not obligated to bring the Paschal offering because they were impure. But because they asked, God said, yes, you will have an opportunity to bring the Paschal offering. A new law was made because they demanded, they asked and requested. Why is it an embarrassment for the Jewish people for the very fact that 38 years they did not bring a Paschal offering, though they were exempt from it? Because they didn't ask. Maybe if they would have asked, God said, yes, sure, go bring one. But the very fact that it didn't bother them, the very fact that they didn't bother asking, that in itself was the wrong. And that's why the people who did ask, the people who said, Lama Nigara, why should we lose out? Those were the people who were rewarded with that second opportunity of bringing the Paschal offering. The lesson is very clear. Many times in life we say, just accept, move on. This is what God did. We are in a situation, this is the way it is. Why ask? Why pray? Interesting to note that according to Jewish law, the mitzvah of prayer, biblically, is to ask God for what is needed. That shows a relationship that you have with God. The very fact that you ask God for something you need shows that you are connected and have a relationship with God. You wouldn't ask a stranger for something. You wouldn't ask a stranger for something if you had no relationship with them. The very fact that you take the opportunity and time to ask God for something shows your connectivity and relationship to God. The lesson that this teaches us is, number one, never be shy to ask. We always have to remember that God is our listening Father, our listening King. He wants to give us. He is the all-merciful, almighty. And he wants to give it us, but he also wants us to ask. Which brings us even to the greater demand of asking God to bring finally the coming of Mashiach. We as Jewish people have a right and an obligation to ask and demand for the coming of Mashiach. In fact, in our prayers, we do it every single day. 6 out of the 18 blessings that we say in the Amidah, the most important part of the prayers, the pinnacle of the prayers, where we stand in silence and our feet together asking of God, we say at least 6 times asking of God about the imminent redemption. Rabbi Yitzchak of Barditchev once said it this way. He says, imagine a parent was reluctant to give something to their child. So what does the child do? The child makes a blessing. Now, the parent doesn't want the child to make a blessing in vain and reluctantly has to give it to the child. But if the child doesn't ask, does the parent even know that the child wants it? We need to ask of God. We need to demand of God. We need to pray to God and ask. We want Mashiach now, that we should bring about the ultimate redemption. And when we ask, God, the all-merciful one, will definitely answer our prayers and heed our requests and bring about the coming of Mashiach. Thank you for listening today to Lunch Break with the Rabbi. Looking forward to spending some time again with you tomorrow at 1 p.m. God bless you and have a great day.